But my takeaway from that, and I was grateful for that on reflection years later, was that all the theoretical leadership and decision-making discussions and training that you can do at military academies and business colleges is worth not a lot when you come across the harsh reality of taking decisions that affect people's lives directly, either over their safety in the battle space, in my case, or their well-being in the business space. Because it's here where the rubber really hits the road. The experience defines your approach. So I think a key question that roots our discussion rather more is to analyze, as I've already suggested, the practical reality of what it is that a leader is actually trying to do. Discussions of qualities and functional approaches are fine, but do they pass the so what test? In my view, the key leadership tasks are threefold: to analyze, to decide, and to deliver. And getting those three things right definitely, as far as I'm concerned, passes the so what test. Now, time precludes me going through those three individually. But to take our discussion forward more generally, I suggest there is an overarching need to have an understanding of at what level of activity the leader is trying to lead within and to lead at. And I believe that this will help him or her decide what it is that needs to be done at any one moment, and then how that should be delivered. What do I mean? In my sphere of work, we separate out activity into three levels: the strategic, the operational, and the tactical. Now, more generally, I suspect the first and the last of those are well known. The strategic level is where the big thoughts are thought, the major analysis is done, and every business endeavor or large organization seems to be well supplied with strategic thought. Strategies for this, strategies for that, probably, if we're honest, too many strategies. And then down below, where it all happens, is tactics, where the rubber hits the road. And in this sense, the tactical level is about delivery. Now, for those who were here 3 or 4 years ago, you may remember Alan Leighton, a very talented leader, somewhat struggled to make a go of the post office over many years, but he was very interesting in his Windsor Leadership Trust annual lecture a few years ago. His view is that 20% of business is about strategy and the other 80% is delivery. But critically, in his view, the glue that holds it all together is communication. Successfully communicating the big idea to those who have to make it happen. And if communication is delivered by leaders or managers who know their stuff, who can inspire their staff, and who can drive through to the objectives, then this is probably a very commendable formula. But in my construct, and with deference to Alan, I believe this overlooks the key level of activity. And this is the operational level, which is the level that sits between the strategic and the tactical, and thus the level that sits between the ideas and the action. It's the level where the key decisions are taken, and it's the level which turns the ideas into action. It's the campaign planning level. And in my book, that's the level which lifts the mediocre to the exceptional. It's the level that listed Nelson, Wellington, Montgomery into the history books, and the likes of Bill Gates and Richard Branson into the world's rich lists. Because it's at the operational level, this campaign level, where the general or the captain of industry does his real work, where an end-to-end plan is formulated to transform the original idea, the big idea, into success on the battlefield or to serious profit on the balance sheet. But it requires serious intellectual rigor to do this, to devise a plan, a campaign plan, to take one in a series of steps, which we in the army would call battles or engagements, to the pre-identified end state, and then success in the campaign. But the compilation of the plan through strategic analysis and operational level decision-making is nothing without the application of energy, drive, and inspiration to take the team on the journey to successful delivery. And this aspect of leadership is key too. And of course it begs the question, will those who are integral to your plan actually come on the journey with you? Because leadership is one thing, but successfully promoting followership is quite another. To arrive with no one behind you is a very lonely experience. And many a young officer has been enthusiastically followed, but only out of curiosity. But now you might be thinking, it's all very well to think in terms of separating out the strategic from the operational to the tactical in a large enterprise like an army or a big multinational company. But where is the application in a small firm, a business, a charity, a church, or wherever? Well, I would suggest that in any application, size does not of itself matter. What does matter is a proper analysis of what you are doing at any one time and why. I would suggest that even in a small business, there'll always be moments when a strategic review is needed. There'll always be moments, probably the majority of the time, when leading the workforce at the tactical level on the shop floor will be essential to delivery. But most critically, there must be those moments when you engage in this operational level thought to work out the campaign plan which translates the strategic objectives into the tactical, practical, and hopefully in the battles in the business space, financial success, and in the democratic space, electoral success. So my point here is that whether in a large or small enterprise, what is really critical is weaving together those three vital levels of activity. And I think, if necessary, one person can do all three, provided he or she knows what it is he or she is doing and at what level he or she is thinking at any given moment. And that, I suggest, requires good understanding, clarity of thought, and discipline of mind. So, if this successful leader in these turbulent times, and is his name Obama, Brown, Cameron, even Clegg, who knows, if he's thought about what he's going to do and why, and has identified the qualities he needs to be effective, and also a good understanding of the need to balance the trinity of task, team, and individual, then perhaps he's on his way. But then the question is, how to do all this? Again, in my organization, and I admit this is where I'm a victim of my own experience, we exercise leadership through a process known as mission command. We aim to do this both in barracks and in the field. But I would apply the principle more widely still. And that said, and in a general sense, I think I've already touched on the key elements of this. But essentially, there are three components to what we call mission command, but all of them hinge around the leader. First, the commander, the senior manager, the leader, needs to think through and fully analyze his problem and convert his strategic goals at the front end of his operational campaign plan, and this results in him clearly setting out his intent. And he needs to have applied sufficient analysis and intellectual rigor so that he can set out to his subordinates or his employees his statement of what needs to be done and his overall intentions as to how it is to be done. And this, I suggest, is rather more than just a wishy-washy vision statement. The second stage, in a non-prescriptive way, is to take a series of decisions, to separate out the tasks that need to be done, and then to delegate them to subordinates along with the necessary manpower, equipment, training, financial resources, whatever, for them to carry out those tasks.